Ted Weiher starved to death. He was found in a mountain trailer, alone, emaciated, dead. He was surrounded by enough food to feed him for a year. There was a heater. He didn't turn it on. There were blankets. He didn't use them. There were matches. He didn't light a fire. Instead, he wrapped himself in a thin sheet and waited to die for 8 to 13 weeks in freezing temperatures, surrounded by survival, choosing death. Welcome to the Red Archive. February 24th, 1978, Yuba County, California. 5 friends decide to go to a basketball game. Gary Mathias, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Jack Huett, Ted Weiher. They called themselves the Boys. They all had mild intellectual disabilities, but they were functional, independent, happy. They loved basketball. They never missed games. They never broke their routine. Jack Madruga was the driver. It was his car, a 1969 Mercury Montego. He was proud of it. He took care of it. That night, they drove to Chico to watch a college basketball game. They arrived, watched the game, had a great time. The game ended around 10 p.m. They got back in the car and started driving home. It should have been a 50-mile drive, straight shot down Highway 70. They knew the route. They'd driven it dozens of times. Somewhere along the way, they turned off the main road. They took an unmarked turnoff onto Oroville-Quincy Road, a mountain road. It was winter. There was snow. They kept going, mile after mile, higher and higher. There's no reason for this. The road doesn't lead to any of their homes. It doesn't lead to anything they needed. The road wasn't even fully open, but they kept driving. They drove 70 miles, past their turnoff, past their town, into the wilderness. And then they stopped. 4 days later, a search team found the car. It was sitting on a mountain road, miles from civilization. The car wasn't damaged. It wasn't stuck in snow. It wasn't out of gas. The engine was fine. The tires were fine. There was no reason to abandon it, but the keys were gone. The driver's side window was rolled down. Why would they roll down the window in freezing weather? There were footprints leading away from the car, not back down the mountain toward town, up, deeper into the wilderness, into 4 feet of snow, in street shoes. Some of them weren't even wearing proper shoes. They just walked away, into the dark, into the cold, and disappeared. Months passed. Snow melted. In June, searchers found a remote Forest Service trailer 19 miles from where the car was abandoned. It was used by workers in the summer. Locked in the winter, but the door was open. Someone had forced their way in, and inside, they found Ted Weiher. He'd been dead for weeks, maybe months. He'd weighed 200 pounds when he disappeared. When they found him, he weighed 85 pounds. He'd starved to death. Slowly, over 8 to 13 weeks. But here's the thing. The trailer was stocked with sea rations, military food, canned goods, high calorie, enough to feed a person for months. Ted didn't open a single one. There was a propane heater. He didn't turn it on. There were heavy coats hanging on the wall. He didn't wear them. There were wool blankets. He didn't use them. There was a box of matches. He didn't light a fire. Instead, he wrapped himself in a single bedsheet, lay down in the corner, and waited, alone, in the freezing cold, surrounded by everything he needed to survive. And he just gave up. Investigators were horrified. Why didn't he eat? Why didn't he keep himself warm? The medical examiner had no explanation. Ted was coherent enough to break into the trailer, coherent enough to wrap himself in a sheet, but not coherent enough to open a can of food or light a match. It made no sense, but the worst part, he wasn't alone when he got there. There was evidence someone else had been in the trailer with him. A second bed had been used. Footprints in blood led out the door. Someone left and never came back. Later that summer, they found 3 more bodies. Bill Sterling, Jack Madruga, Jack Huett, all within a few miles of the trailer. Exposure, hypothermia. They died in the woods. Gary Mathias was never found. To this day, his body has never been recovered. But there was a witness, a man named Joseph Schons. He'd been driving on that same mountain road the night the boys disappeared. His car got stuck in the snow. He stayed in his car, afraid to walk in the cold. And that's when he saw them. Lights, moving through the forest, figures, people walking. He called out for help. No one answered. Then he heard something else. Whistling, shrill, unnatural, coming from the woods. He said it didn't sound human. The lights moved away. The whistling stopped, and he never saw them again. Police didn't believe him at first. He'd had a hard episode. Maybe he hallucinated. But the timeline matched perfectly. The night he saw the lights was the same night the boys vanished. So what did he see? Were the boys running from something or towards something? And what were they so afraid of? So what happened to the Yuba County Five? Theory 1, they got lost. Maybe they took a wrong turn, panicked, got stuck, decided to walk for help. But that doesn't explain Ted in the trailer, surrounded by food he refused to eat. Theory 2, Gary Mathias had an episode. Gary had schizophrenia. Maybe he had a mental break, convinced the others to follow him up the mountain. And when he realized what he'd done, he ran. That's why his body was never found. But this doesn't explain the witnesses, the lights, the whistling. Theory 3, they were running from something. Joseph Schons saw lights, heard whistling. The boys abandoned a working car, walked into deadly conditions. What if they were being chased? What if something or someone terrified them so badly? That freezing to death seemed like the better option. What if Ted wasn't starving because he couldn't eat? What if he was too terrified to move? Too afraid that any sound, any light, any movement would bring it back. The Yuba County Five disappeared on February 24th, 1978. 3 bodies were found. 1 was never recovered. They were ordinary people, going to a basketball game, driving home, and something made them turn. Something made them drive. Something made them run into the snow, into the dark, to their deaths. So here's the question. What could scare 5 men so badly that starvation felt safer than survival?